Outside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC podcast, episode number 407. Andrew with you once again. Merry Christmas and season's greetings, basketball gamers, and Merry Christmas and season's greetings to my co-host Derek, aka D for 3.
I'm happy to be here again. Merry Christmas to you, and happy holidays to all of our listeners. This episode is kind of dedicated actually to our listeners. We actually opened up the mailbag again, and a couple people sent us some questions via email. And then I actually posed a question to the community, and we got quite a few answers to that.
It's a Christmas special and another mailbag special like we did last year. So yeah, looking forward to it. We really appreciate our listeners checking in throughout the year. We've been doing the mailbag. It's been picking up steam throughout the year, and yeah, got some to finish out the year, so it'll be a nice listen for this holiday season, I think.
No, absolutely, I agree. I did want to bring up something, though, before we get into that. I connected with @B-Ball Video Games on Parsec, and as you saw, we played NBA in the Zone 2. One of those highlights actually made it into this week's Christmassy Top 10 Plays of the Week as well. But, man, I miss Konami making basketball video games. Don't you? I mean, they had some really good releases. The Konami basketball games always just kind of seem to be, loose and fun, with like the NBA in the Zone series and even, Double Dribble Playoff Edition and whatnot. I just miss other companies being in the basketball gaming space making basketball video games, and one of those companies is Konami.
100%. I don't have as many memories playing Konami games growing up as you do, but I have checked a lot of them out in subsequent years, really appreciate what they've done. Got a few that I still need to cover for Way Back Wednesday, actually. And we've played a few, we've connected on a few of them as well and played them. You showed me Double Dribble Playoff Edition for one. And yeah, just we've said it so many times, but if we could make a wish for New Year's, a Christmas wish, a New Year's wish, whatever, it would be to have another company, at least one company, come back in 2022 and make a new game and just give us some more alternatives, because look how much fun we've had playing games other than the latest 2K this year.
Yeah, it's wild that another company hasn't come into the space in all these years. There's a lot of talented programmers who are interested in sports video games. There's a lot of talent out there in the video game making space in general. So it is really shocking to me that nobody else has been really trying hard to get into the basketball gaming space and make sim basketball video games. But yeah, we had a really good time on NBA in the Zone 2. I used the Timberwolves and he used the Cavs, and he blistered me from 3 with Danny Ferry. I kicked his butt with Kevin Garnett, and it was just a really fun, loose experience. And I think next time we connect, we'll probably end up playing the original NBA in the Zone, because I think that one's even better for head-to-head. But yeah, good games by Konami.
That one, the first in the Zone, is more of an arcade game, is it not? With the really high-flying dunks, kind of like Give and Go.
So yeah, I mean, you could say that NBA in the Zone, the original one, is a little bit more arcade because of how far out the players take off for dunks and how crazy it can get in that regard. But the reason why it's a little bit better of a head-to-head experience is because NBA in the Zone 2 has this incredibly annoying double team logic where the entire game, every single person you pass to basically gets doubled. Like, you're just doubled every time you catch the ball. And then when somebody looks open, like even underneath the hoop, and you have like 10 or 15 feet between you and the player you want to pass it to, and then you throw it to him, somehow those 2 defenders that were doubling you make it to that player under the hoop, and now that player's doubled. It's just a complete double fest. So that was one of the problems with NBA in the Zone 2. And I just think that NBA in the Zone, for that reason, mainly that reason, is better for head-to-head. The other cool thing about NBA in the Zone, the original, is the music that plays through each quarter. So like that in-game music that really helps with the experience for a game that is lacking, a lot of commentary and whatnot. So the other thing too that I thought was cool was I was playing Basketball Classics. That's another highlight that made it into the top 10. And I know we mentioned this when we had Josh and Dave on, and I commended them on this. It's really cool, the different music that they used in Basketball Classics for each quarter. I just thought that was a really good touch.
It's a real throwback to those old games, which is one of the things I love about Basketball Classics, 100%. And that's a great score by Josh that they included in that game, and it does. It really helps with that atmosphere and that rising tension as it gets into the fourth quarter. And you wouldn't do that for a sim game. You wouldn't do it for live. You wouldn't do it for 2K. Some people might like it. I think that in live and 2K, you need to have that authentic presentation with commentary and whatnot. But in those games, having that score in the background was a really great video game touch. And yeah, those were some great highlights. You and I connected as well for a couple of games. I think that was the first time you said, if I'm not mistaken, that you played NBA Live 99 PC.
Yeah, I had never played the PC version. I obviously grew up on the PlayStation version and played the hell out of that. And I gotta say, it's definitely smoother as are most games, but it's definitely smoother on the PC. The frame rate is better, obviously, and whatnot, and it just feels like the action is a little bit looser on the PC version. And I enjoyed myself, even though I had a little bit of lag during the game. I was still able to do some stuff offensively, get out on the break and drive and dunk and whatnot, and hit some threes with Pierce and whatnot. I did have a good time, and I think that Live 99 is just a very underrated release, and that's because most people remember Live 2000 and how special of a release that was.
Absolutely. It's sandwiched between 98 and 2000. Obviously, that's how time works, chronology works. But 98 being that big leap into 3D for the first time. And the first time we had actual face textures and some of the other enhancements of the Live 98 PC and PlayStation versions of that game. 2000 brought in franchise mode and legends and was such another great step forward in both gameplay and the features and everything else. And the graphics were also enhanced that year as well. 99 is kind of overlooked for that respect. But it does have that recurring problem that we've talked about before of those old games. Your old trigger zone, trying to trigger dunks and layups. And with the lag, that did get you a few times. Even went into practice mode to see if it would help you accommodate to the lag and be able to compensate for it. But yeah, it was a pretty good session. I was trying the direct shoot a little bit more. Those dunks with Barry that made it into the top 10, Brent Barry, they were actually direct shoot dunks. But I did actually have to kind of almost move my hand in a cheat code direction to get that to work, because I didn't switch my controller into direct input before I fired up the game, so it wasn't recognizing my triggers. So I had to use the analog buttons for direct pass and direct shoot. So it wasn't optimal in that respect, which is a thing when you are retro gaming with those games. You either need to use the software to emulate it, or my Logitech has the switch to go between direct input and X input. So that is a thing, but it was definitely a fun session. That, and also playing SKL's NBA 2K, or rather NBA Jam 2K22 mod for NBA Jam Tournament Edition was a lot of fun. Playing with the legends and with the updated rosters. A couple of weeks back we played NBA Jam 2K14 by Miller Time, and that was a lot of fun. But we checked out this yesterday, and the 2K22 mod, and very impressive.
No, that was a lot of fun. I do want to say one thing about Brent Barry. Brent Barry, of course, Jordan's replacement on the Bulls, right?
Yeah.
Jordan retires, and then Brent Barry comes in. There's only two things that Brent Barry and Michael Jordan have in common. One, they both played shooting guard for the Bulls. Two, they both dunked it from the free throw line. And that's where all the similarities end. That's pretty much it. That's crazy. But, Brent Barry, those two dunks that you had actually that made the top 10, I thought those were really clean. And especially the second one, the one-handed dunk in traffic with Celtics jumping around. I thought that one looked really good. The dunks are just really good in that game. They're a lot of fun, and they're loud. And I think Live 99 has a lot going for it. As far as that Jam Tournament Edition mod, basically the ROM hack for the Super NES version. It was cool to get out there with Kobe and you use Jordan and, for us to take on the Hornets and whatnot. Again, I had a little bit of lag on my end. We ended up losing at the end, actually, in a close game. But I still thought we were still able to play pretty well together overall, especially for our first go at it at that point.
There's some unforgiving comeback logic in Tournament Edition for Super Nintendo, which definitely worked against us, and the lag was obviously an extra challenge for you, but it's so impressive, that mod. They've added some new sound effects from the newer NBA Jam games, from Mortal Kombat, obviously. They've got different codes to unlock content. They added some of their own cheat codes. They brought back the backboard shattering, which happened in the original NBA Jam, but not Tournament Edition for the Super Nintendo anyway. They've added a spectator mode so that you can actually watch the CPU versus CPU. So that's a very impressive ROM hack.
No, I love it. You actually kind of gave me the files, I believe, in a little bit of a tutorial on how to, run that on my end, and I have to install that at some point. I think the next time that we connect with you hosting, I'd like to try a different arcade basketball game just to see how it works. But, given that you're hosting in Australia with not so great internet, and I live an hour outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and you're able to host and me to connect with you and us to have even that good of an experience, I'm still just thoroughly impressed.
I mean, how good has Parsec been this year? We've said it over and over again, but it's really revolutionized the way that you and I play basketball games, I think. And the fact that we've been able to connect, we talked about it for so long and speculated on what we'd do and what we could do if we were able to find a way. And we kept trying to remember, what's the name of that program? Check the forum, Parsec. I forget who originally mentioned it, but thank you to whoever did, because that's just been so revolutionary, again, for our basketball gaming this year. And we said it last week and in recent weeks, but it's going to be more of the same next year.
No, I can't wait. I think we're going to have a lot of great sessions with the community, and obviously we'll finish the Live 10 tournament, and we'll start the new one on NBA Jam. And I can't wait to post those highlights and get people's reactions, just like with the top 10. We've done 32 weeks straight of putting out a top 10. And, last week we didn't have many submissions at all. And I think it's because people have been busy for the holidays and whatnot, and they haven't been playing as much. But I plan on continuing that. I want to hit that 1 year mark and then continue into year 2 and not miss a week. So, I love showing off the games every week, the different games, from past and present and whatnot, and getting people's names out there. So if you have highlights, please send them to me because I need more submissions.
Absolutely. First of all, I love what you did with the Christmas special, changing it up with some with that cover of Deck the Halls, of course, and the snowflake effects and everything else. It was really cool to see, and appreciate all the work you've done for our YouTube channel this year, of course, on top of getting on here and recording the podcast with me as a team member for this whole year. We're going to be entering our 3rd year of co-hosting the podcast in 2022.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Well,
yeah.
I can't believe how fast it has gone by. I remember the first time you asked me to go on the podcast. I was like, this is so cool. I can't wait. And now we've gone, 2+ years really without missing a week. So it's been really fun. And I don't plan on stopping this anytime soon either.
Absolutely. And I do want to echo your request for submissions for the top 10. Keep sending them through. Sometimes we have more than others, which is why sometimes you'll see a bit more of our highlights in there. But I do want to put it out there that Derek does work incredibly hard on the top 10 each and every week. If there's even a small mistake, because sometimes typos happen or whatever, he'll say, hold off, posting that video and send me through a fixed version very quickly. And also to that point, sometimes you'll get late submissions, Derek, and you've said to me, hold off, I've got a late submission that I want to put in, and it's always our highlights that you take out. So we always want to prioritize the community's highlights. We always will. But when there's fewer, we do stick a few more of our own in there. But definitely keep them coming. We appreciate all the submissions so far this year. We've had some incredible highlights. People really enjoying the top 10. So please keep it coming in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. I want to say one of the things is you'll see highlights from Andrew and I in there at times. You'll see highlights from my brothers in there as well. Not only because a lot of weeks I don't get enough submissions, so I don't get 10 submissions from the community. In fact, I think this week I only got about 4. So I had to, fill up the top 10 with my highlights, with Andrew's, with my brothers. But something else just to keep in mind with that, we are all community members. Andrew's been a community member, whether he's running the site or not. He's been a community member for 20+ years. His highlights qualify for the top 10. I've been a community member for almost a decade now, and I was one back in the late 90s as well. I'm a community member, so my highlights qualify. My brothers, also connected to the community, their highlights qualify. So just keep that in mind. If you see Andrew or my name in the top 10, there could be several reasons why we're in the top 10. More often than not, it's because we don't have enough submissions, so I have to improvise. So that's really the reason for that. So I do the best I possibly can. Like Andrew said, whenever I get a late submission, I rip out one of my highlights or I rip out one of Andrew's or something like that, in order to make it as many community highlights as possible. So, but I love putting it out every week, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
And to that point, we do love the interaction with the community, sharing our content with you. And to that end, it is time for the mailbag.
To the mailman. What an unbelievable dunk!
So for a lot of us, we have some holiday memories with basketball gaming. Hopefully not kid sports basketball. That's a game that we both played recently. We'll circle back to that in a future episode because we have plenty of things to riff on there. But Derek, you did put out a prompt about basketball gaming over the holidays and whatnot, and we got some great responses to it.
No, I love the community's responses to this, and we got, like you had stated, quite a few responses. I think it's a really cool topic. So here's the question that I posed to the community. I said, who is or was your favorite person to play basketball video games with or against? What games did you play? And what made those experiences so special?
And I think this is a topic that's very near and dear to your heart and my heart because we both grew up with people, your brothers and my cousin, who we played basketball games with and against. So we can definitely relate to some of the things that people were telling us in their responses.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking of, too. When I asked the community that question, I was thinking about all the great times that I had playing video games with my brother Mark and my other brother Nick, and also playing with my father growing up, who got us in to basketball video games. And I was thinking about all the different experiences I have with each one of those people in my life over time, and those are just incredibly special. And I was thinking about all the different games we played over the years and all of that, and I wanted to hear from the community and hear who was their favorite person to play with or against, and what made those moments special, because I bet they're very similar to what made my moment special with the people that I loved and played with.
Well, I can definitely relate to the answer from Midwest King _100. My cousin, who lived 3 blocks away, who I was competing against. NBA Live 95 and NBA Jam were games that I played. Being able to customize players that weren't in the game, such as Live 96, was what made those experiences special to me. That pretty much sums up how I played games with my cousin Clinton, who originally was just up the road from me, but moved an hour or so north of where I live in Newcastle. He was originally from Newcastle as well, but he would come down in the school holidays. Live 95 and Jam, specifically Tournament Edition PC, were the games that we played, so that sounds like very familiar experiences to me, and those are just fantastic games to play. Many hours spent with those, so I definitely relate to Midwest King on that one.
Reading through that, I was like, this sounds like Andrew.
Yeah.
Right down to the games that were being played in the customization, because you and I have always been about that customization, right?
Definitely.
Like, and just like you and your cousin, and then, me and my brothers and whatnot. And I can't tell you how many times we created players on like Live 96, whether it be creating, and I know a lot of people have done this out there, but like creating members of the family, right? Like creating us and then creating our parents and all of that stuff and putting them on the floor.
Sure.
And stuff. And we used to do the same thing with like Triple Play Gold Edition as well. There was a create a player option, and we would, create players and put them on the field and play a season and whatnot. And obviously we spent, growing up, me and my brothers, we spent a lot of time on NBA Jam for Sega CD, NBA Jam Tournament Edition for Super NES, etc. So, and obviously those early live games. So I can definitely relate to that as well.
I've mentioned it on the podcast. I've written articles about it. But one of the funniest things that Clint and I did back in the day with Live 95 PC as we were going through our season was to replace Xanta back on the 95 Rockets with Larry Bird, and made the story that Larry Bird was attempting a comeback with the Rockets. And we were doing a story section on my old site, the NBA Live domain at the time. So I not even photoshopped. I used MS Paint to do it. Got a picture of a photograph of him from a press conference and the Rockets logo and put them together. I think I've shown it to you before. It's a hilariously bad Photoshop that's not a Photoshop, a paint job, if you will. It was just such a weird and funny thing to do, and I actually, talking to Clint recently, I I took a screenshot. I put Larry Bird on the Rockets in 2K21, I think it was. It was a while back now, actually, to come to think of it. But put him on the Rockets and send him a screenshot of it and said, hey, remember this? This is what it would look like these days if we did that. But, yeah, just doing little funny things like that to get through the season. When I say get through the season, the season mode is always kind of a bit of a marathon. So to make things interesting, we were doing little subplots like that, and we weren't really enjoying playing with Xanta back, all due respect to Xanta back, and so we just replaced him with Larry Bird for about 10 games. Had him make a brief comeback and included that in the story that we put on the site. So, yeah, that was fun.
It was funny. Larry Bird, if he hadn't hurt his back, he would have been playing probably in 94, 95, 95, 96.
Could very well have done, yeah.
Yeah, he would have been in your season 15 or something like that, and that wouldn't be far-fetched to think that he'd still be playing. So it's almost even like a realistic scenario. Like maybe his back got a little bit better. Who knows? And, Rockets signed him and whatnot, and he signed for the minimum or something.
Well, that's the thing. It's not like we brought back George Mikan to play on the bench or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, what we did? We did a lot of was with like NBA Live 96s. And I told you about this. I thought this would be a fun thing for you and I to do. But we put like the worst overall centers in the NBA at the time.
Yep.
And we put them on the same team. We called them, like back then, we were just kids. So we called them like the dumb centers or something like that. And we put them all on the same team and played against the computer on the hardest level and tried to see if we could win. And we did silly stuff like that. So I'd be interested to hear that might be my next question for the community. What silly stuff did you do with these games? Like something that would be considered abnormal, because I know that a lot of other people did stuff like that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, as much as we like the sim style, sometimes you like to change it up with doing something silly, and bringing Larry Bird back was perhaps more on the mundane side of that, because we also adjusted his ratings for his age at the time. They weren't prime Larry Bird ratings, but it was still not something that actually happened during the 95 season. So it was still playing around with reality. Similarly, Knowledge Bone at the Harassment on Twitter had a cousin who lived across the street, went from Double Dribble to the NBA Lives. A favourite was playing random people at the arcade and NBA Jam. Playing NBA Jam in the arcades, I'm quite envious of that, actually, Derek, because I don't think I've actually ever done that. I can't remember playing an authentic arcade machine. So that's very cool. Something about killing people in Jam. He goes, 25 cents at a time was awesome. Yes, arcades. Yeah, that is very cool. And again, playing with a cousin, I can definitely relate to. But playing Jam in the arcades, that authentic arcade experience, yeah, very cool. And I'm just a little bit envious of that too.
I'm a little jealous there too as well. I mean, I played arcade games growing up. I went to arcade and everything, but I never faced off with anybody at the arcade. And I am kind of jealous of that because, like he said, when there's money involved and whatnot and stuff, it ups the ante, right?
Definitely.
And that's kind of cool. And I think I'd have fun with that now. Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, we're talking about Jam and we're talking about cousins and whatnot, which is crazy because just to let you know, I've never been friends with any of my cousins. Like, I don't know any of my cousins.
Okay.
So I see all these stories about your cousin and these, these submissions. Answers to the questions, referencing their cousins. So luckily I had my two brothers at least, right?
Well, that's right. My half-brother is 16 years older than me, so we didn't really grow up, but for a few years in the same house before he went away to uni. So, yeah, it's my cousin was kind of, we're quite a close family, so he was kind of like where there's only about 8.5, 9 months between us, so we kind of grew up almost like brothers in a way. So that was the dynamic that we had. So it was kind of a similar thing.
Well, you know what he said? He was talking about the. I was just thinking about this. He's talking about the kind of the challenge and the money involved in like beating people at the arcade. I'd like to maybe one of the questions too we can ask of the community is, what's the worst fight you've gotten into with somebody playing a basketball video game, and what was the fight about?
Yeah,
because I'll tell you, there's been some unbelievable doozies between my brothers and I. We have really gotten into it before about certain things with the games.
Any broken controllers or hardware or anything like that? Or
I hit a buzzer shot with Vince Carter using the 2K14 UBR versus my brother Nick's team, and and he didn't think the shot should have gone in. It was a fadeaway on the baseline, heavily contested, and that controller went flying across the room and smashed against the wall, but nothing like the controller was fine. Like, I'll give you an example of a fight that happens. So my brother is flipped out. So I was using the 10-11 Bulls against him in our 2K17 season, and I scored eight first half points with Taj Gibson. And it was like 8 points in a row to end the first half, and that absolutely drove him absolutely. He was nuts about it. He lost his mind. Oh, this is unrealistic, and blah blah blah, and he was losing his mind. And we had a fight about that. But like I said to him, I said, sure, that's, you can get upset about that, but does that mean that I shouldn't get upset that you put in 60 points and 20 rebounds against me with Rick Smits on NBA 2K19? Because you seem to be perfectly fine with that. So if it's okay for you to put in 60 points and 20 rebounds against me with Rick Smits on 2K19, why is it not okay for me to score 8 first half points with Taj Gibson on NBA 2K17? So that's the type of fights that we get into.
Yeah.
It's like I said, that's like just one example of like a argument or fight. There's been a lot.
I mean, it's all love at the end of the day, but of course, in that moment when you're competing, video games can suddenly become very serious business.
No, they really can, especially siblings, right?
Yeah.
And there's a special connection in a good way, but then there's also a comfortability with siblings and whatnot. And you guys, when you have siblings, you can really like go at each other, and sometimes we do.
So next up, we have a submission from Jacqueline, Culture Games. It says, I guess it would actually have to have been my mum. Even though she wasn't that good at the games, she did love basketball and have her favourites from the 80s, so she would use the Legends team and I would play her and try not to go too hard on her, just so we could have a fun game. On PS2 NBA Live, she would abuse the hop step. Eventually the games got too complicated for her to learn the controls, and we stopped playing, but I still cherish the memories. That's nice. I really like that, and that goes back to you mentioning playing with your dad.
No, I love it. Yeah, her mentioning that brought back memories of me playing with my dad in the games that we would try to take it a little bit easy on him, because he played. So the difference is my dad actually played basketball video games all the time. Like he played them all the time, whether it was Dick Vitale's awesome baby college basketball for Sega Genesis, or NCAA basketball, or NBA Fast Break 98, or NBA 2K, or NBA Live 99. He would play them, and he would play them with us and whatnot. I think back to a time when we were playing the original NBA 2K, and he wasn't great at it, but he always wanted to use the Celtics because we watched every game on TV. We never missed a Celtics game. And I just remember trying to pull back constantly and kind of give him a little bit more space to shoot and everything, and give him maybe every now and then give him a little bit of a lane to the hoop and whatnot, because I just wanted him to have a good time. You know what I mean? Because he was a little bit he wasn't as good on the sticks as we were, but he loved playing them. So yeah, no, I think that's great, Jacqueline, that you had that experience with your mom. I think that there's probably a lot more parents now that play video games with their kids because they grew up with them, right?
Definitely, yeah.
So I think that's also kind of a special bond between a parent and child.
I actually do have some memories of playing basketball games with my dad back in the 90s. He played a season with me in NBA Live 96 PC where kind of he controlled the Sonics and I was always the opponent for them. And I can also relate to pulling back a little bit to give him a bit of a chance, because I was a lot better on the sticks than he was, or the keys, as the case may be at the time, the gamepad. But definitely some fun memories there. Also playing NBA Jam Tournament Edition PC against him. He was a bit better at that one. That's a bit easier, a bit less complicated to play than the sim games. These days it's very hard to get my dad to play anything but a Civil War game from a DOS Civil War game from the 90s and the first Empire Earth. He kind of defaults to that. You can buy new games, but he's eventually going to go back and play his favourites there. Creature of habit, as I am, with the games he likes. But I did actually play some basketball games with my dad as well. Yeah,
I was going to ask if he still played, so that answers my question.
Well, let me put it this way: it's he's 75 now, and he asked if I could give him one of the show him one of the Fallout games, Fallout 3. So I put Fallout 3 on there, and wasn't quite his speed. So he likes a bit of a slower paced game these days, more of his strategy games. So yeah, it's been a while since I played a basketball game with Dad, but used to play a lot of the sports games on the Intellivision. That was actually the first console that I played was the Mattel Intellivision, playing soccer and football, that is American football, and I think we might have had a hockey game as well. So we were playing some other sports on the Intellivision. We didn't have the basketball game. We didn't have NBA basketball for Intellivision at the time. I've since actually added it to my collection all these years later. It's primitive, to say the least. But no, I've definitely played a lot of games with my dad over the years.
Yeah, some of my earliest memories with basketball video games is actually watching my dad play. So I was super little, just a couple of years old and whatnot. And I remember my dad playing with his friend in our house. I remember him having all night double dribble sessions. It was just all night double dribble sessions from the on the NES. And those are my first memories actually of basketball video games at all. Like I don't remember, back then when I wasn't really picking up the controller and playing, I remember him playing with his friend. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And I think that's neat that your dad even still plays. You said he's not basketball video games, but video games in general. You said he still plays some old Civil War games and he's in his mid 70s.
Yeah.
I think that's damn cool, to be honest with you.
Oh, he still gets out there and plays tennis as well. He's quite active, his dad.
I love it.
I
love it.
He's also got that. He's originally English, actually, my father. So he's got that British skin. He's 75 and he looks in his 50s at most. So yeah, he's. You forget that he's actually in his 70s sometimes.
No, that's great. That's great. No, but thank you for that answer. And I was really hoping that one of the responses was going to be that they played with a parent. So that's really cool.
Well, we've also got another submission here. This one actually came before you put the prompt out, and funnily enough, it actually matches the prompt. It's from FTS 5012, sent it via email, which you can do, podcast@nba-live.com. Since it should be around the holidays when you get to this question, just wanted to hear you guys share a fun Christmas-related NBA memory. Could be real NBA or NBA video game related. As a kid, Christmas Day was always the day the brothers and I would have our showdowns in whatever the NBA game of the time was against our cousins. I specifically recall beating my uncle in NBA Live 98 as a 10-year-old. In later years, I stopped watching the NBA, but I was unexpectedly gifted NBA 2K10 on Christmas from Grandma Edna. It was the first one I'd played in several years. I liked it so much that it actually got me back into watching the real NBA for a few years, before it evolved into what it is today, and again I stopped watching, probably for good this time. Thanks, and happy holidays and New Year to you both. Well, first of all, thank you, and happy holidays to you too. I really appreciate that email, and again, it actually fit the prompt that you were thinking of. Once again, we have some playing with uncles and parents, and even a grandma involved this time, getting a basketball game. And yeah, more showdowns with brothers and cousins.
I gotta tell you something. If your grandmother is buying you basketball video games, that's a cool granny. I just want to throw that out there.
I can beat that. I can beat that. For Christmas in '94, when I was 10, my grandmother, who was 70, or just short. I think she was 68, 69 at the time, if I remember rightly. Bought me Doom 2 for Christmas. now there's a gift to get from you, Nana. Yeah.
That is wild. Yeah. No, I had a grandmother actually, real quick, who we convinced. Oh, how old was I? Oh my God, I must have been, I think I was 10 years old, something like that. I had a grandmother that we convinced she had never picked up a video game controller before, but we convinced her to pick up the controller to play Mario Kart for a minute. And I got to tell you something. She was screaming the entire time because she's like, she didn't know how to control the cart and stuff. And she was running into the walls and she's just screaming the entire time. And it was just absolutely hilarious. It was something really funny about people picking up, especially older people picking up a video game controller for the first time and just like not knowing how to handle it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think that's a cool granny move to be able to, buy you a basketball video game. So you asked about Christmas memories. My ultimate Christmas memory was getting my brothers and I getting PlayStation 1 and getting NBA Fast Break 98. We put that baby in so fast. We hooked that up so fast and started playing that game, and we thought it could never get any better. We were absolutely floored by NBA Fast Break 98's graphics. We thought that the faces were so lifelike and the action was so lifelike. I want to say that we played that game like nonstop. I don't even remember eating. I want to say probably like 8 to 10 hours straight. And we just couldn't put it down. It was constant head-to-heads, me and my two brothers and whatnot. And that is the most memorable Christmas for basketball video gaming.
What about real NBA memories as well, he mentioned?
You know what? I don't really have any, I don't think, for real NBA memories. We never really missed a nationally televised basketball game growing up, but nothing really stands out, to be completely honest with you. And we never missed a Celtics game growing up. We watched full seasons every game. I mean, I used to sit in front of my TV with a pad of paper and a pen and a pencil, and keep track of players' stats every game for the Celtics. And I had like a whole notebook full of these pages I kept and whatnot. So, but there's not really a Christmas Day game that stands out for me.
I do have one. It's the Bulls versus Lakers 2011, just after the lockout lifted. 10 years ago now, that game-winning block by Luol Deng when they beat the Lakers in Los Angeles on Christmas Day. That's to tip off the season after the lockout was lifted. So that would probably be my real NBA memories. As far as Christmas gifts and such go, Christmas '96 was a big basketball year for Christmas presents. I remember getting NBA Jam Session, the board game, Jordan basketball, some other merch at the time. Can't remember exactly which now off the top of my head, but I remember that was a big year for basketball gifts. Christmas '98, I got NBA Live '99 for Nintendo 64 at the time, so I remember playing that a lot on Christmas Day. So definitely have some great some Christmas-related basketball and basketball gaming memories there. And of course, the Christmas holidays in Australia are the end-of-year school holidays, the summer holidays. So again, that was when Clint would come down and stay with us for weeks at a time, and we'd just play basketball games throughout the summer and just have a blast with it. And of course, go to the backyard and shoot around on the hoop and bring it down so that we could do dunks and recreate the top 10 that we watched on NBA Action. So those are my Christmas memories for basketball gaming.
We weren't doing much shooting outside considering where I live, and usually on Christmas we're looking at, 30 degrees
freezing,
Fahrenheit.
Yes.
And whatnot. Like right now it's actually 30 degrees. But I think that's I'm not sure why I don't have more real NBA basketball memories from Christmas. I don't know. I will say, actually, there was one other Christmas that I was just thinking of that was really special. It's when we actually got the Sega CD. So the Sega CD that attached to Sega Genesis.
Oh, yes.
And when we got that, actually, we got Sewer Shark, which came with the system, which is still just, I love that game. I don't care what people say about it. I just beat it again recently, actually. I love Sewer Shark. We got that, and we got NBA Jam. And NBA Jam for Sega CD just has an amazing soundtrack. And sure, the graphics are basically the same as what they were on Super NES and, the Sega versions and whatnot. But there was something extra special about getting it on the Sega CD. And that was a very memorable Christmas, booting up that version of NBA Jam and playing Sewer Shark and whatnot. And then, playing on the same team on Jam with my brothers and whatnot.
So you also pinged Roger Ward at RAJJ888 on Twitter, along with Nate, the NBA Live 2001 highlights. They have submitted various highlights to our top 10 over the past few weeks, and that incredible number one play last week, that full court shot. You reached out and said who wins most of the games, and Roger responded, "It pains me to say Nate wins more often, maybe 55 to 60% of the time over the last year, but every game brings a new set of challenges and adjustments given how well we know how to manipulate matchups and foul calls. Every game or two, something happens we've never seen in 20 years. Like on the last top 10, we've never made a shot from anywhere near that deep, but our roster knowledge and knowing how to score or defend with end-of-bench guys always makes games interesting." And they certainly do have some interesting highlights, and they're doing some great things by creating some modern teams and retro teams. I've seen some of the stuff they've been doing. It's always very cool to see. But yeah, that's still close to a 50-50 record. That's still a very competitive series between the two. I'll just put that out there.
I love seeing the highlights from them, and I know they know how to use the end of the bench guys, because remember, we had a number one play from them when we first started doing the NLSC top 10 plays of the week, where they subbed out Akeem Olajuwon and put in Matt Bullard, and Matt Bullard hit the game winner. And that is a I don't know how to put it. You have to have nuts in order to take out Akeem Olajuwon and put in Matt Bullard for the game winner and for it to work.
That is a ballsy
And you have
move.
to know how the
Yes.
game works. It's very, very much so. So, no, I think the strategic part is great. And you can usually tell when somebody really knows a game or if they're good at the game with how they use the non-stars, right? How they use the role players and how they use the bench and end of the bench guys. And it's pretty clear that those two not only love NBA Live 2001, but they know the ins and outs of the gameplay and whatnot and how to use the players, whether they're, poor overall or higher overall. So it was cool to see that too, for him to say it pains him that he doesn't win the majority of the time. I'd say usually Nick and I, my brother Nick and I, we're usually about 50-50, to be honest with you, on pretty much every game. Like, it doesn't matter which game, we're usually 50-50. I'd say that on NBA 2K19, he's been winning a bit more, like I mentioned on the last podcast, and I blame that exclusively on David Robinson because he's just been absolutely killing me with him. But, yeah, I'd say it's, most of the time with Nick and I, it's 50-50. Lately, it's probably been him 55-45 because of the 2K19 wins. My oldest brother, Mark, probably he's done amazing on 2K17 recently, and he's been getting a ton of wins. I'd say that he's probably he probably loses the most out of the three of us, but he's very good at two different games, 2K17 and 2K14 for the PC. He's very good at both of those games.
I was just thinking, we haven't really counted, I think, but our head-to-head record, kind of in Live 10 and some of the other games, I reckon you're probably ahead 70-30 at an estimate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have a little bit of a advantage on NBA Live 10 because you do have that tiny bit of lag. But I did feel pretty good about when you hosted and I was still getting some wins.
Yes.
There. But I like our games. I think they're competitive. I think that we've had some very memorable games. I had to beat you with like a almost full court buzzer beater with Michael Finley on Live 10.
Like I said, I wasn't too upset to lose that way because it was just so ridiculous and memorable that what can you do? Like, that was one of the best highlights I think we've experienced ever.
Right. I do want to point to something out that's great about what Roger Ward and Nate Stasio are doing and what Roger said. He said something, he's talking about strategic and he knows how to use all the players. That's how you get video game legends, right?
It is.
We've talked about this. That's how you get the Travis Outlaws of the world and the Walter McCartys and
Jumpin' Joe Alexander, yeah.
Alonzo G's and Jumpin' Joe Alexanders. That's how you get those guys to be video game legends because you overachieve with them, right? Because you know how to use them in that video game and in those situations when most other people wouldn't know how to use those players well, but you dominate with them.
I mean, Hashim's the beat getting that game winner against me and our...
I did really well with to beat against you in that game, but you were killing me with Joe Alexander in that game. So, no, I think it's great. I love the video game legends thing, and I love that it's always role players or players that, ride the end of the bench, and you just get the best out of them. He talks about the pain of it. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what. I know those two are best friends. Imagine the pain of losing to your brother, right?
Yeah.
Like, trust me when I tell you that's where a lot of the debates and arguments come from. I would say I'm probably the best sport out of the three of us, like handling losses. But yeah, I mean, it sucks to lose to your brother. And if you lose to your brother multiple times, either in the same day or over the course of a couple of days, it stings. So I get it.
We need to do that again soon on Live 10 or another game that has fantasy teams.
Oh, yeah. I want to point this out, too, to people really quick. We talked about the top 10 plays of the week. We talked about submissions and whatnot. A lot of times with the submissions, like the one from NBA and the Zone 2 from Abdi Ball video games, that's me connecting with somebody to play. I was playing against him in that game, and then me taking the highlight and bringing it into the top 10. So there's a lot more work probably than people think with creating that top 10. And a lot of times the highlights are me taking them from sessions that I'm playing with other people.
A lot of mine.
So
quite a few of mine, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, with you too. Yeah, a lot of the highlights that I've included of you have been sessions between Andrew and I, either playing on the same team or playing against each other.
So our final mailbag submission of this episode, and indeed the year, comes from Nadir Chisholm. Was wondering what other sports games and sports game mods we're into playing besides basketball. What's one that we'd like to see most come on to PC? Like, as with 2K, they've been saying for years that MLB The Show is coming to PC, but it hasn't yet. Madden's on PC, but nobody's really making retro mods, apparently. So yeah, other sports games that we're playing and mods that we're using or would like to see. I really only play basketball games, I have to say. Wrestling games as well, but I haven't really played any of the new ones for a while because I was quite disappointed with WWE 2K20, as many people were. That is on PC, but I don't have it on PC. I wasn't inclined to double dip because of the quality of that. But yeah, it's mostly been basketball for me, Derek. But I know that you and your brothers do play MLB The Show.
Yeah, so I would absolutely love for MLB The Show to come to PC. My brother Nick and I are over 30 games in. We're both playing against each other every game. We have our own teams, and we did an all-time fantasy draft and whatnot. And we're over 30 games into a season right now on MLB The Show 20. And I think that those games just have unreal presentation, just ridiculous graphics. Some of the best sports games that I've ever played, just really solid gameplay. They have a lot of depth, a great creative player feature, and whatnot. So yeah, MLB The Show, I would love for that to come to PC. I do agree with you about the new Maddens. I actually have all the Maddens on PC since they started releasing on PC again, because my brother Mark gets into the football games more than Nick does, and we sometimes connect on those. And there's definitely a lack of mods. I know that they did do a all-time teams roster for Madden 19, which we downloaded, and that was available on Operation Sports, and it basically just put all the best players with no duplicates on each team in the league, and we did use that roster, and it was a lot of fun. But there definitely needs to be more mods for Madden. The only other genre that I'd like to see on PC more is tennis games, but it's not. There's a lot of tennis games on PC right now, but they're not what Virtua Tennis and Topspin Tennis were. So it's not that I don't. It's not that there isn't tennis games on PC right now that are being modded, but my brothers and I are into tennis, and we were into it growing up and whatnot in the 90s and then the early 2000s. I'd like to see the Topspin and Virtua Tennis series come back, and then when they come back, also hit PC, because we would love to mod those.
And of course, I can't believe we forgot to mention this, but racing is a sport, and Garfield Kart is a racing game. So of course we'd love to see mods for, the extra lasagna mod for Garfield Kart.
Where is the phone app for us to be able to put our face in Garfield Kart?
Absolutely.
Right? Where is that? So, yeah, we got to get on them about that, because Garfield Kart is life-changing.
But thank you for all the mailbag submissions and responding to the prompt. We'll be doing that throughout 2022 as well. We love doing the mailbag segment whenever we have enough submissions, so keep those coming, along with the top 10 submissions. And, once again, keep the discussion going in the comments over in the NLSC forum, on the main page posts, wherever you can get in touch with us, social media, which will be promoting our social channels shortly. But once again, thank you for tuning into the show throughout the year. We really do appreciate it. Do we not, Derek?
No, this has been excellent. I love all the interaction we've had this year. You people, participating not only in the mailbag, but commenting on the YouTube videos, commenting on the Twitter posts, the IG posts, Facebook, all of that stuff. We really appreciate our listeners, and that interaction definitely motivates us. So please definitely keep it coming. Keep submitting those top 10 highlights. Keep interacting with us, because we love it.
But with that being said, that does bring us to the end of this week's episode, the final episode for 2021. We will return in 2022, of course. The NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, which is nb-live.com, of course. You can also find us on all the podcatching apps and platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, just to name a few. On those platforms, search for NLSC Podcast, look for our logo, and that will be us. On platforms such as Apple Podcasts, we would certainly appreciate a review, hopefully a positive one. And of course, you can also listen to the show on our YouTube channel. And as we wrap up here, Derek, what are your socials and any of the final words you have for our listeners this year?
No, again, thanks for listening. Get me those top 10 highlights. Something cool happens on the video game. Definitely shoot the highlight to me on Twitter, or send me an email, or send me a message on the NLSC, like with the Google Drive link or with the YouTube link, etc. And I'll definitely try to get it in the top 10 there for you. You can reach me on Twitter, where I'm the most active, at D for 384. My other handle is at D for 3G. I'm also on the NLSC as a team member, D for 3, and on YouTube, D for 3.
Thank you for supporting not just the podcast, but all of our content this year. We do it because we love basketball games, and we want to share that passion with you. We want to be fans, not fanboys, critics, not haters. Whether it's good or bad, we want to talk basketball games with you and advocate for you, and just celebrate basketball gaming in general with all of our content and coverage. I am Andrew in the forum, and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. The NLSC is on Twitter and Facebook at the NLSC. We're on Instagram at NLSC Basketball. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, nba-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. But yes, that's all for this week and for 2021. Thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.